stood there in front of everyone. Couldn't even speak. So this is a story of how I went to work and then ended up leaving at 3 o'clock in the morning in tears. I went home and I decided never again. I'm never going to let anyone ever put me in that position ever again. So I used to work as a healthcare assistant, and a lot of the times I'd be the littlest as of someone who has a very small build. I would very often be referred to as the little girl or the wee girl, and a lot of the time I would actually be the youngest person on the ward, and I got used to it. I got used to being referred to as this little girl because I know I'm little. A lot of the times I would work with really nosy people that would always be wanting to know everything about you. And I'd be thinking, do you know what, you don't need to know the ins and outs of my life, especially because I was working with an agency. Like, I might never see you again. Don't need you to know. You don't need to know me. We don't need to get to know each other. But the thing is, I had decided to stop working, leave work, and then go back to university to study medicine and pay for it myself, which, thinking about it, is wild. Anyways, so on this particular night, I was working a night shift. I showed up to work as usual. A lot of the time I'd show up to places I've never been before, so obviously would go in and introduce myself and really just get to know the people that I'm working with. At the end of the day, you want the shift to go as smoothly as possible, so obviously, like, being friendly with the people that you're working with is important. I get told where I'm working and then I crack on. So on this particular ward, they liked to wash patients at night time, which was really weird, and which, I mean, I didn't really like, because doing washes was not my favourite thing in the world, so I like doing night shifts. But anyways, I'm here and we start doing washes. There's literally like 2 of us for the whole ward, because this particular ward, not a lot of people liked going to it, but I'm not going to let people's opinions of the ward stop me from going. I thought I'll go and experience it myself and then make a decision based on how my shift goes. So I think my shift started at 8 p.m, I can't remember, but anyways, so from about 8:30 till about past midnight, I haven't stopped. We have been doing washes back to back. It's just me and this other lady who was a permanent staff member of the ward. Okay, so we've been doing washes non-stop and no one's complaining. I'm like, I signed up to this, I'm, like this, I don't have an issue with it, let's get going. Mind you, I have not stopped to have a sip of water, no break whatsoever, no cup of tea, nothing. But I'm thinking, well, I mean, okay, I don't think I'm going to come back to this ward again, but whatever. I'm just going to see it through. About 2 o'clock in the morning, about 2, I think, or 1 o'clock. I still have not had a break, mind you. People have started taking their little breaks, which is wild, because at that time, that's when people should have been taking their breaks, right? Their breaks. At least I should have had a second break by now, but no. So all the patients are sleeping, all the lights are off, and I go into one of the bays to update a urine output. And because the lights are off, I take my phone out of my pocket to use the flashlight, because obviously I don't want to disrupt anyone. I don't want to wake up anyone. I don't want to wake up the patients. I write what I needed to write. I put the folder down and then I put my phone back in my pocket. What I didn't know was that the other lady that I'd been working with non-stop could see me from outside of the base, and she saw me put my phone back in my pocket. She comes into the bay all fired up, like, we need to do this, da, 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 da. I can't remember what she wanted me to do, and she was like, this is not the time for you to be using your phone. So I'm thinking, I've not had a break. I'm sure you've had a break, and you've come back energized and fired up to tell me that this is not the time for me to be using my phone, when really that's not what I'm doing. I'm merely just using the flashlight because everyone is sleeping. So I stop there for a second and I think to myself, I'm so angry and annoyed. Should I go out and tell her and say something to her? Anyways, so she storms out the bay and I follow her and I say to her, I'm sorry, but did you see what I was doing? Did you see that I was actually using my flashlight to write because I don't want to wake anyone up? And she was like, well, you shouldn't be using your phone anyway. And I was like, listen, you're not going to speak to me like that. I don't know how you're used to speaking to people, but you're not going to speak to me like that. So anyways, we get into it. And because she's, I guess, a permanent staff, she thinks she can speak to me anyhowly, anyway. And she starts shouting at me. And at this point, I'm just so tired. And I break down and I start crying. And at this point, like, everyone's, like, all the nurses are surrounding and looking at me, looking at us go at it. At this point, I'm stood there literally like crying my eyes out, and like I could barely speak, but I was trying to speak. I was trying to tell this lady, you can't speak to me like that. You cannot disrespect me, especially in front of the patients that I'm supposed to be looking after. I have been trained to be here, and so have you. You're not my boss. I actually told her that she's not my boss. She shouldn't be telling me what to do. But anyways, respectfully. So at this point, I've decided, you know what, I don't need this. It's nearly 3 o'clock in the morning. I have not had a break. I am so tired. My feet on fire. And I know that some of these people have started going on their breaks, and why have I still not had a break? Anyways, so one of the nice nurses says to me, go into the staff room. And by the way, this place had no staff room. It wasn't like a proper staff room where you can heat up your food if you had any and sit down on a nice little comfy chair for half an hour and have your break. There was none of that. It was literally like an office with computers, and you basically, that's where you were sat. This was the staff room. So this lovely nurse, bless her heart, says to me, go in there and try and calm myself down. I do that, and I was like, no, I don't want to be here at all. I can't calm myself down and then go back there and act like everything's normal. One of the nurses, when I go into the room, she says, good job you did that, you spoke out, because she speaks to people like that all the time and nobody does anything about it. Cool. I was like, I think I need to make a point at this point, because how do you treat people like dirt and then expect them to come back and work with you? So I say I'm leaving, and they try and beg me, because I was like, okay, I know that we're very short staffed, but at the same time, I'm not in the right mental space to be working here, so I'm gonna go home. And then they try to get the matron, they try to get everyone to come and like speak to me, and I speak to them and I say, do you know what, I am literally sat here crying. All these patients have seen me standing there out in the corridor crying my eyes out. They've seen the way that this lady disrespected me and shouted at me when I didn't do anything. Anyways, the matron's like, if this is how you feel, like, I completely respect it, I understand, I'm okay with you going home. So I get in my car and I drive home. And that was the day that I decided, I'm not going to go to sleep tonight. I am going to go and start looking for ways to make money, so I never have to be in this position ever again. And I never have to let anyone make me feel like it again, like this. Here we are. Anyways, I'd love to know what your story is. What's your story? Comment your stories. Comment your story. Let's hear it. Let's compare notes.